I want to thank everybody for coming. I am delighted to be able to introduce this afternoon's speaker. It's Mike Stallings. Mike is a native Putnam Countian. Interestingly, he was born right across from the Dairy Queen in Palaca. Currently, he and his bride Janice live in Wielaka. Mike went to St. John's College, Santa Fe, University of Florida, and each time he went to a different college, he kind of changed majors, but mostly he majored in engineering. He then joined the Air Force. He's retired from the Air Force and thus began his career as I hate to even use the word amateur archaeologist and paleontologist. I consider him to be more of a semi-professional. And after I think he finishes with his talk, you will agree with me. He has been involved with archaeological digs as far north as Alabama. When DOT was clearing the right-of-way for a road, they brought in the professionals, they brought in volunteers. Mike helped, and they dug many, many burial mounds to determine if there were any human remains there. Also, he has dove with 3 universities in the Gulf of Mexico to determine how far offshore they could find Native American artifacts. That would be 10 miles and 30 feet. He is also a scoutmaster. He is in charge of helping the scouts earn 30 different merit badges, most of them in the nature resource arena, including fossil shells, birds, and so forth. And in short, he's an all-around nice guy. Please join me in welcoming Mike Stallings.
With me. We're going to be talking about St. John's River, the historic or prehistoric St. John's River. But before we get to that part, we're going to talk about before the St. John's River. Over here on the very end is a little bone that I picked up. I found it, had a rope to it, sent a buoy up, so when we get back in the boat, we can pull it up. Well, we pulled and pulled and pulled, got about halfway up, and it fell off the rope. We didn't find it again for a year and a half. It's about visibility. I mean, if you can't find that and you make 6 dives in a week and you dive in the same area and you don't run into it. So that's approximately 6 million years old. I have a list. I just had some major surgery. I still have my bruising from my IV. But the 6 million years ago, we're approximately, nobody really knows, but over 100 feet underwater here. There was no St. John's River. More than likely with no Florida. And then it started to recede. And if you think about it, it happened about 6, 7 times that we know of. We know it probably happened more than that, but that's what they're saying, about 6 times. And the cool part about it, to me, is you get this whale, humerus. That's that ball joint right there. That's the tip of the bone of the whale. I have the other end of it. It's a little bit smaller, but I don't have the middle part of it. I have his rib. His rib's 11 feet long. It's sitting in a mold. I make molds of certain pieces, and if they're rare, and then the original go to University of Florida. I don't keep that. We've got 31 species out of the river, not including shell. And the cool part about the shells, you get these whelps. You'll find these in the deeper waters in the ocean. You won't find them on the beach falling around. So it just tells you this was out there, right there with the whale. Okay, through time, oh, I forgot to tell you, we did have another a fish that used to swim around. And this is one of the small teeth. I have found one that's that big. It's megalodon. Megalodon, again, 6 million years, size of a school bus. But there was a whale that ate him, a sperm whale. And we're not sure if that's a sperm whale. It's hard to tell. They can't really tell without, but we find sperm whale teeth, but then also find part of the mandibles of baleen whales on the bottom. So it could be either. But these been deep water, and then time started to shift. The ice started to, build up north, and it kept going on and going on. Started getting clams. Okay, clams are in estuary. And then things started to change a little bit more. Oysters. These all came out of St. John's River. Some of them are still closed when we pull them up. They still have mud in them. They're together. So now the ice is building up even more and more. Things are starting to warm up. And then we start having these other little animals that moved into Florida. And one of them was one of the elephants. I don't have him up here. It's called a gomphotherium. The gomphotheriums are around 2.5 million years old. They had 4 tusks. They had 2 lowers that were flat, and the uppers were round. And his nickname is called Shovel Tusk because they think he used the bottom tusk to dig. Then times slowly evolved. Horses, did y'all know Florida had horses at one time? We had 5. Yeah, but then went down to a 3-toed horse. And the 3-toed horse is about 2.5 million years old too. And this is his tooth. Now, you have to remember the visibility is not all that great. So this is your eyes. You feel an ID. And the rule of thumb is if you're not sure what it is, put it in your bag. You can throw it back. And this is this one 12,000 plus years old horse. And the horses left out of here around 100. They migrated around 150,000 years ago. I remember the last one was here. I think I rode him over. But they went over to Asia and then down south of Europe, the south part of Europe and in parts of the Africa. And then something drastic happened. We had a major event that happened, and that there, don't know where it happened, but a meteorite struck again. And what it did, it caused the whole northern hemisphere to get cloudy and burn because there's a lot of aerial bursts and it just set everything on fire. So you had these big megafauna that we had all around that couldn't sustain themselves because all the foliage, because they're vegetarian, died out because there was no sunlight. It was all in blanket. So you get these critters that need several hundred pounds of grass every day. They can't get it. So this is the demise of the large megafauna. But some of the people that I worked with, they wrote a book, and I hate to admit it, but I am in the book, say that man wiped out the big beast, which I do not believe. think about this. There's still in India and Africa, there's still elephants. There's still rhinoceros. There's still big game. There's none in the northern hemisphere. It was wiped out up here. There were people in that part of the world before there ever were people here. So think about this. How many of y'all know some great hunters? Okay. Okay, but think if you're this is really being a great hunter. Think about these guys right here. This is a mastodon. That's a mammoth. Okay, our mammoths we had the in the northern around Atlanta, we had the woolly mammoths. They stood around 9 feet at the shoulder. So think about the roof right there, the seat. We didn't have those here. We had Colombian mammoths. They stood 14 feet at the shoulder.
Oh, wow.
Okay. There's a couple of us, we're gonna go hunting, right? We got our stick. We got our rock tied to the top of it. We're gonna walk up there and stick that sucker. Right? No, you're gonna be the goo between his toes. Try that. Now, I do believe, because we did on a number of the projects I've been on, we did find a lot of megafauna with butcher marks, but that does not mean they hunted them. That means, to me, they had an opportunity. One was sick. They got hurt fighting each other during mating season. Something happened. Since the lack of food for them, they're starting to demise. They're getting weaker. And now the big megafauna are dropping. And think about it, there's groups of people out there, all up and down the St. John's River, 12,000 years old, years ago. And they see this mammoth over here. It drops. They go over there and they start cutting pieces off of it. This is why I don't think they hunted them. Why does 12 people need 6 tons of meat? Think about 6 tons of meat. You're gonna risk your life to get a pork chop. So there's no reason for it. While you're butchering this animal, what's sneaking up on you? These are things that we found in St. John's River. We know they were here. We found the saber cat. Okay, we got dire wolf. We got short-faced bear and a 500-pound jaguar could run almost 40 miles an hour. Now you're going to sit around and carve on that or camp around it, and you're drawing these predators. There's just a lot of variables there that I do not believe they hunted them. I think they took advantage of situations. So these guys are moving on, and then we had this little guy.
Oh.
You know what this is? It's called core. It's like on a cat or a dog, their nail grows up like this. This is not a big one. I got one that's even bigger. You think it's a bear? How about a little baby sloth? We had Breatherium and Megatherium sloth. Their teeth are totally different. And this one is a Megatherium, no, Breatherium. And this is a Breatherium's tooth. And one of the things I like to show kids, I'm sure y'all are all kids, right? This is a mastodon tooth. Okay. One tooth. And if you look at it, you notice it's lobed, it has lobes in it.
Did it mold?
They want to know if it's a molar.
Yeah, they didn't have front teeth except for their tusk. And so this is molar, I'll show you, this is one in the dollar here. But what I like to show people is, look at this one. It has lobes in it too. What does that tell you? They ate the same thing. They were browsers. They ate the leaves and tender shoots and stuff like that. Okay, we get down here to this guy. This, I'm gonna hold this one a bit lighter. This is the chewing surface. And you notice it's flat. And this is a Colombian mammoth. When it's in the jaw, it rotates up. See how it's kind of,
Oh,
it's in plate. So it rotates up and it breaks off. I've got a broken. This is probably the tip of one right there. And about him, he's got flat teeth. Well, look at that horse tooth. Later on, y'all can come up and really look at it. But their teeth are pretty much the same except for size. So what does horses eat? Grass. They're grazers. These elephants are grazers. So the teeth tell a lot about what things eat. So now things are dying off little by little. Very little grass, and also these guys are very carnivore. Now, we found this tooth, this juvenile tooth, and a baby
oh,
in one hole, water hole in St. John River, an ancient water hole. So now we're around, around 12,000 years. And what's probably happening, anybody familiar with Western Africa, the desert, and how they have monsoon rains? The rivers start to flow, everything turns green, the flowers come up, and everybody's happy out there. Then through time, it starts to shrink up. The rivers get small and smaller, and smaller. Then they have water holes. And I think that's what happened here. Because we found this by a water hole, we even found a sloth with it. But the thing is, when they're injured or sick, they go to water holes because they get dehydrated.
How did you know it was a water hole? I think they'd be interested in hearing.
I wet rocks. I have to know. And I cut them so I can see what's in them. And you can see freshwater shell in them. And so every time we find a clump of fossils, I also cut the rocks there too and slice them. So
Sand and sediment at the time and it turned to rock?
correct. And now this is limestone. This goes back with the well, and the shell is older. But a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of limestone in the area.
That water hole in the middle of the river, I mean, the river. Really only-
Yeah, I'm lazy. We could go out and dig in the backyard, but I let Mother Nature do my work for me and dig for me. St. John's, roads it away and washes it away, and I go pick it up. So,
Is the water hole still there?
yes, full of water.
Really?
Was down the road, was only water.
Okay, you're in black water. You can't see more than a foot. Why don't you describe how it feels like when you get to an area where you think there's gonna be fossils?
Well, we've got several places we dive in. This one spot, Tony and I dive. He certified him many, many years ago. We've been diving together for over 40 years. And I like, there's one place we dive, I call it the mud dive. And I like to dive it in January, February, because the water temperature is so cold. But the mud is so thick, you have to pour yourself down in it and under it. But it's warm. You can't see anyway, so it doesn't matter. We find fossils there, but he's not real crazy about it. Visibility in the summertime is actually the worst. Because you got algae blooms, you have all types of pollens coming into the water, you got a lot of suspended particles, rains, you get muds and tannic acid and all this mixing. And my light that I carry is 47,000 lumens. That's how bright it is. I've dove down there and couldn't even tell if I had it on. Sometimes it's low, we just hang it. And when we need to check our gauges, we illuminate our gauges. And then we lay our gauges up against our mask to look to see how much air we got. And we use compasses a lot. Because ebb tide, you don't know which way, north, south, east, or west. So you got to have a compass. And our compass, we found one that has really half of it is light colored, and the other half is dark color with arrows opposing. You get the arrow in the dark is white, so you can see it, it illuminates. You put it up against your mask, then you know which way north is. That's all you need to know. So, and another place we dive, we feel, and it's kind of, imagine this. I had this box right here, and I filled it with razor blades and a few fossils in it too. Okay, that's what it's like in some places. It's the shell is etched from the acid in the water, and it becomes extremely sharp. So you got the feels through that, and you do about 2 dives and you're done. You wait for the next week, wait for your hands to heal. It's like diving and putting your hands in a box of razor blades. Then there's places that is gravel. It depends up and down the river. When we go down the river, we visualize what the bottom looks like because we've been there. We have another place we don't dive. We call it the Dragons. And it reminds us of when you look at your side scan, when you're going down the river, it looks like the back of a dragon's back. It's like this. It's sand mounds. That go up and down because the water is pushing them. Just like on a dirt road. It does the same thing underwater, except some of them 8 feet tall. And the visibility is, we don't like to dive clear water because we're scared something to see us. So, yeah, that's why we dive dark water, make sure nothing can see us. And I mean, you'll bump into each other or grab somebody's piece of equipment and wonder, what is this? And you feel it. And I picked up a Tony's fin one time trying to figure out what in the world it was. It was still on his foot. That just gives you the idea how dark it is. And now in wintertime, the water is still tannic, but you don't have the algae blooms. You don't have all the pollens. The water is like clear iced tea. Your light actually can penetrate it. It doesn't flash back in your face. And that's what's bad about in the summer with the bright light, you turn it on, and then it hits all those particles and you can't see because you're getting flashback. It'd be like if you're getting a flashlight and you throw a bunch of powder up in here and try to shine through it. You can't see through it, even though it's real fine. You get flashback from it. And then we dove, I don't know, all over Florida and out in the Gulf of Mexico. And the reason we stopped 10 miles out because that we followed the ancient river channels. We had Exxon loaned us some equipment in University of Florida and FSU. We went, I had a boat, we went out and drug this equipment back and forth 24 hours a day for 10 days and looking for the ancient river channels. And then the following year, we went back out and because we plotted and figured out where they were at, and we went back and dove them. And we actually found we went out 10 miles is our limit. We think we can find them artifacts at 400 feet if we could dive that deep, but we can't. So it's limited, depths are it's limited. So this through time, we look at St. John's River, everybody looks at it and we all think it's been that way forever. At the time it didn't exist, there's some data that says that it reversed flow. Merritt Island and all of that, they can't find a river system that could deposit that much sediment to make those barrier islands. The only one that is around is the St. John's River, and it is down that way. So so they can't figure out what's going on. 2 years ago, I'm diving and I found this spring out in St. John's River. Grew up a little bit more, found another one. We dove a few more times. We ended up finding over 12 new springs they didn't know about in the river. They just happened to line up. And then we dove behind Turkey Island, and there's a foot difference. All of a sudden, there's a shift on the bottom. There's like this. Well, I called up some people I know that one of them is the state geologist, and they came over and they dove with us, and I thought it was a fracture, but I'm not an expert at it. So he looked at it and he said, yeah, it's a fracture. So what happened, remember we were talking about the water being over Florida? Well, at one time, around 19,000 years ago, where it's 400 feet deep out there, you could sunbathe on the beach. So the water came up over 400 feet. And think about if you had a cake, you put your hand on either side of the cake and push it down on it. You're going to see linear lines. It's going to crack, and you're going to see linear lines across that cake. Well, that's the same thing with Florida. If you look at Google Earth, you'll see most of our rivers run north-south because of these fractures. So Mud Springs, Mud Springs, Willaca Springs, Beecher Springs. I'm trying to think of a few more. All of these are lined up on this side of the river. All of them are having something else in common besides being, they're all sulfur. Springs on that side of the river aren't. So this is a fracture that goes along, and so we have that lift. It's a hinge. It goes like this. So it lifts, all of us up here like this, and it's sinking further out. It's going like that. So there's we look at a lot while we're underwater. We're just not there picking up fossils. We gain knowledge. A lot of times we gain stuff we don't even know what we're gaining until we start talking to somebody and they say, oh, that's this. Well, now I collect rocks for the geologists. I collect fossils for the UF. I collect anthropods. I sent those to university, FSU. They found out we're supposed to have 2 anthropods here in this part of the river. Well, now we got 3. They didn't know about the 3rd. So we gained, and we also collect these. This is a giant tortoise. All of this goes to UF. I don't know what they do at UF, but they do what they do with it, and then they
How,
ship it.
how big? Tell them how big on the.
Galapagos tortoise.
How, okay.
They're pretty good. They used to run around. And so we collect those, and they're sending that when they get done with it UF, they send it to Germany. Germany is trying to do DNA and dating with it. And what they have determined so far, none of the tortoises in the northern hemisphere are kin to any of them in the southern hemisphere. So we learn by, we associate with all these people. We collect. They say, "Well, we need this." Well, we start collecting it for them, and then they teach us what they find out. So you gain. It's a good relationship, and I don't keep the rare fossils. If it's a rare fossil, it goes to UF. And even like this, I won't throw this one, but I make copies. And they get like this one I found in Yaklawaha. This is a baby mastodon. What's the biggest beaver you ever seen? 30, 40 pounds? How about size of a black bear? Yeah, we've had those. They were running around here. What's the biggest armadillo y'all seen?
Flat
Yeah. If you're talking about tenderized, B.F. Goodrich. Google this. He's got a cousin, the giant armadillo. He has a cousin. His name is Glyptodon. And on Ice Age, the cartoon, there's an armadillo-looking thing, but that's a Glyptodon. Well, Glyptodon and giant armadillo are cousins, and they were here at the same time. And they're the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. How would you like to run over one of those? Someone runs out in front. This is part of one of them shell. Right here, giant armadillo. And there were quite a few of them. I have a lady that does research on them. And she wants all the giant armadillo I can get her. Well, I love to give these to kids because they're durable. But she doesn't know how many I find, does she? But there's a lot of people don't know about Florida or North America. Actually had camels here.
Really?
Yeah, here's a camel. And the camel, and then the little bison. You see how they're split? It means they had 2 toes. Horse has 1. So they were running. There's all kinds of critters running around here, and we take it for granted that we just look, see a possum or a raccoon, and think about these. This guy here, 14 feet at the shoulder. You look out your backyard and your garden, and he's standing there. And this is another. These still live. They're in southern part of Texas and in Mexico. This is a peccary. You notice his tusks are different than today's hog. Today's hog is almost goes out, but both of them are still self-sharpening. They hit each other every time they close their mouth, and they're razor sharp. And we, keep thinking about, now when you sit in your backyard, and I want you to look around and think about these fossils here. Because these guys were literally walking right here. These came from the St. Johns River. And it's amazing. We got 31 species of prehistoric animals out of St. John's. 5 of them are new, they didn't know about. We got 2 different types of sloth, 2 different types of horses, 2 different types of tapir. We had tapirs here too. We found another turtle not known to be east of the Swanee River. So when we dive, we look at ourselves as collectors of information. We pass it on and work close with the correct people, and so we gain, they gain, and it's amazing, when you get, I doubt any of y'all would look at it the way we do. We see these little anthropods laying on the bottom of the river. We're sitting there. We see them crawling around. They look like little tiny shrimp. But if you look at them under a microscope, you swear you're looking at some horror beast. They're ugly. And then you look over, there's a bottle laying there. Clean the bottle off, and you look in it. For years, we couldn't figure out how all these rocks were getting in the bottle. Rocks don't float. You get a bottle up here, and it's half full of rocks. Well, we learned there's a small crab that lives in the bottle. That's as big as he gets. And he builds his house in a glass house.
Oh.
And then you look over, and there's a blue crab, and he's eating. And all of a sudden, something come in and hit you right beside the head. You don't know what it is, because you can't see that great. And we know it's some kind of fish, but things run into you in the dark. It keeps you on your toes.
Tell them about the shrimp.
Oh, the shrimp will beat you to death. We can hear them. They make this clicking noise. And when it gets really, shrimp season gets going on, it sounds like the potatoes out in the trees, but underwater. I mean, it gets noisy. And sometimes we'll come up in the boat and take our gear off, and shrimp will fall out of our gear. But they'll hit you in the mask, and you'll like this story. It's happened twice. Well, we got through diving, and I carried my gear up to the house. I have an air compressor we fill our tanks with. It's not one you fill your tires with. This one pumps 5,000 PSI, not 120. So we get up there, I fill the tanks, and kept smelling something, couldn't figure out what it was. So then that Friday came around, and I carried gear down, set it in the boat. This is gross. All these maggots fell out. It was a fish that got wedged in my equipment. So it sat in my shop for a week. So Tony bought him a brand new BC, which you wear, hold your tank and pump air into it. You need to go to the top, carry your weight. But it had a problem, the weight wouldn't release. In case of emergency, you want your weight to be able to fall out. Well, he couldn't get them out. Brand new, dove with it one time. So he went home and set it up so it could dry. His cat kept going over to it, couldn't figure out why. So he's going back and forth. I think it was almost a week went by. He got him a box, getting ready to box it up, and smelled something. But he had a fish in his too. So you never know. And it's every dive is like Christmas because you don't know what you're gonna get. And we have some ladies that follow us around sometimes on the river, and we'd love for them to show up because we don't ever take anything to eat. They always fix us a sandwich, but then we give them all of our once. But they distribute them through a number of schools, give them to science teachers. And we've been friends for many years, and we want them to take them because a lot of times we'll throw them back. We find something like a rock, and we think it was something else. We got names for them. If it's a flat one, we call them skiptodons. Because they skip it. It's a kind of irregular, they're plunctodons. And there's a couple others I can't mention. But I found this guy. This was funny when I found this one. I thought it was an alligator. I looked and I seen it, and the profile of it didn't look right. And I carry this rod. It's about this long with a plastic handle. And so I slapped it a couple times. I poked it a couple times. It didn't move. So I reached over and touched it. And that's bone. Flipped it over. It's a mandible of a mastodon. And I had a game warden. You probably don't know about those. They came and somebody reported divers went down and they haven't seen them in several hours. They're scared something happened. So they sent somebody to check on us. Well, while we were there, the call came in, oh yeah, they're back up in the boat now, but he's sitting there by us now. So I said, hey, before you leave, there's a buoy over there. If you would you pull it up for me? You're gonna be surprised. He pulled it and pulled on it and pulled on it. He got it up. He looked in the bag and he looked back over at me. He said, what is this? We told him what it was. I said, you're the second human that's ever seen that and touch it. So we'd like to share. If we're up in the boat and we've already made a dive and we see a boat that idling by with kids in it, I'll wave them over and we give them fossils because we want to educate them. If we see people on the dock, we'll pull over and give them fossils because we don't need all those fossils. We could easily fill this room top to bottom with the fossils that we found.
Wow.
And so one of the things I do also, the other research I've done is archaeological. And a lady was doing research on Indian potteries. Well, they were looking for this special clay that everybody's brother's second cousin's best friend's uncle knows about. But nobody could take you to it. This clay had what's called sponge. Well, the St. John's pottery had, if you break the clay open and look under a magnification about 400 times, it looks like rice. The spicules are silica and they are just crisscrossed in thousands and thousands of them. And I know it was a woman that invented that. Her husband pulled his head out. It got full of this right here. You see that light color and it's on that bone down there? That's sponge, freshwater sponge. Nobody thought about freshwater sponge. So I walked halfway across Florida looking for it. Found it halfway, all the way. Halfway across, there's no reason to go the other half. So I went into UF and I said, there is no clay with sponge in it. They added it. And the reason I know they added it, I'm talking to a local fisherman, had his nets out And he said I was asking him about it. He said, yeah, he said, I have to pull my nets and I tie them up between trees, let them dry. He said, then I go over there and beat them with paddle to knock the stuff off. If I wait too long, they get so heavy I can't get them out. He says, I made a mistake. I run my lawnmower through it. He says, it feels like I rolled in my attic. Well, see that red? That's sponge pickles from that big bone when I picked it up today. So then she started testing it, and I brought her a little bit of sponge I found. She started adding it to the clay. Sure enough, that's what they were doing. They're adding it to. So she wrote her paper and got all this praise and all, and never said a word about me. She got all the credit. But that being said, I collect these teeth. This tooth on the market is probably around $2,000.
Oh, wow.
That, I don't know what that is over there, but if you sold that, that's about what you can get out of these, $1,500 to $2,000. We're tired of picking them up. And these, I don't, at a trio, I don't know what it would. It's mother last year, or 2 years ago, daughter, and then a baby. And then when I find them like this that are broke and pieces like this, I've been collecting them. Wonder what the heck am I going to do with all that? I get all over the shelves and all. So I came up with an idea. And
What, you want me to jump in and then you'll finish?
yeah,
Okay. So let me.
So if y'all recall earlier when I introduced Mike, I said that he was an all-around nice guy. Trust me. And so he has given to our historical society to either raffle off or auction off a Damascus steel knife, half of it's mastodon, half of it's mammoth tooth. One sold in Willaca for $1,000, another sold on the internet for $1,350. And I just got finished, well, I spoke to Cherie earlier, and the society hasn't quite figured out how we're going to monetize this. We might put it out for bid, we might raffle it, but regardless of that, he's been kind enough to give it to us, and there's also a stand with it. And what's the stand made out of?
I stole that wood from the bottom.
Okay. So St. John's River driftwood, we'll call it, right? So yeah, so he's just fabulous to do that. And the Damascus steel knife that's layered, that's not easy to make.
12 layers.
Yeah, yeah. And you probably had some coaching from Steve Swartzer, I'm guessing, or not? No?
One of his buddies.
One of his buddies, okay. Swartzer is our famous knife maker. Maybe sometime we'll be able to have him down here to talk about knives. But anyway, that's in the works. Maybe the board of directors will talk some more and figure out the best way, like I said, to monetize it. Obviously, we want to get as much as we can, when we auction a knife or raffle it. And with that, maybe we can open it up for Q&A. You ready for? Okay. So I'm going to hand it back to you.
all right, so that's what I found out I could do with the pieces. And it took me almost 3 months to figure out how to stabilize it. You don't just slice it. Well, you can, but it ends up like gravel. So I have to put it, just to give you an idea how much work it is, I have to stabilize it by encapsulating this in epoxy resin. And then I pull a vacuum on it to get all the air bubbles and pull as much of the air as I can out of the fragments, the pieces. And then it goes into a pressure pot for 24 hours, about 70 pounds of pressure on it. If there is any air, it's going to squeeze it down even more and get more resin in it. Then I slice it with a diamond blade, and then I have to harden it again. But it doesn't go all the way through, and there's microfractures all the way through. So every time you do something with it, I reharden it. I back it with carbon fiber or put it on the handle. And then this one, you can see the pins, they're supposed to be hidden pins, but I went too deep. They're not hidden anymore. I drill holes and I put brass pins. Then it goes back into epoxy resin, goes back into the vacuum chamber. Then it goes back into the pressure pot. Now I can start working on it. Then I cut it down, and then I have this other adhesive that I use, and I dry it out, and then I put, it's like a real watery super glue, and I soak it in it, get it down in there again. And this just goes on and on and on until you finish. And sometimes you don't, it doesn't seem like you're ever going to finish. But I figured it out. It's a lot of work. And I was wondering why you could buy mammoth teeth slabs, thin pieces about this thin, about that long, and about that wide, $150 a piece. But that doesn't guarantee it's not going to fall apart with you. And so this would be worth a lot of money sliced up. But I don't want to do the whole ones. So I decided what I'd do is make these and find 501c3s. And that deals with, kids and educational things. And I donate them. You can't buy them from me. Already had one guy want me to sell him one. And I said, I don't sell them, but you can buy them. I had one lady kind of bent a little bit. She wanted one for her father, but it wasn't mastodon. I made her a knife, and she wrote a check to friends. Would like if it's a children's garden. She gave $1,000. Two of them went to Coastal Marine Institute, Tallahassee. They got 600 one and 1,000 for another. They do a lot of educational things with kids. I found a way to turn my little treasures into more treasure. And I do all the work. I buy the blades from this guy, give them to me. I get them at a good price. And now I can turn, it takes me about, if I stay on one, I can do one in about a week to handle.
Wow.
So
Well done.
it belongs to y'all.
Thank you very much.
We're all welcome to come up here and touch and ask questions and whatever you want to do. I love people who handle the fossils, because looking at them is one thing, but touching them is something else. Oh, let me see. I got this is a good one to talk about. You know what this is? Did you ever seen it's a prehistoric solar panel. They think I'm kidding. Yeah, it's a prehistoric solar panel. The only place you find these is on the back of an alligator, only on the back. You won't find them on the sides or legs or anywhere else or the belly, because they're not for protection. His back is pretty much black. These bumps stick up. Notice there's a lot of holes in it. You flip it over, you'll see some more holes. Well, it pumps blood into this. He comes up, he lays up on the top. He warms up. This bone gets good and warm, and it stays warm longer. So it warms his blood up. Now he's ready to dive and stay warm for a little while. Then he comes back up and he can warm up again. Because in the wintertime, if the gator eats very much, it's killing because he can't digest it. So This is a prehistoric solar panel. So anything y'all want to ask or come up and look at or?
Real
Okay.
quick. Yes, and it might be better if you all came up and you can touch and feel and ask Mike the questions. But I also wanted to add that about 2 years ago, I shot a YouTube video of Mike on the water with his dive buddy, Tony. It's about 15 minutes, but you get a chance to see him in the boat as the fossils come out of the water. And I don't know, we just thought that might be the icing on the cake. So I think the plan is, Rachel, you're going to post that
Yeah,
tonight?
I can.
For then it'll be sent out on the website.
I got